like, oh, my microphone. Oh, whatever. It should be working. Like I had a partner who was had migraines, and I remember it was pretty debilitating.
Yeah, for me, it's not that much about pain. It's just like a hospital migraine.
Huh, interesting. Yeah. I'll have to think about this some more. Maybe I can do a little sleuthing around in some medical literature and see if I can learn something about the brain, you know, the neurological side of things. I have to teach a neuroscience course in the summer, so yeah, so it'll be better. It'll be a good opportunity maybe to do some learning. So anyway, we should get rolling. Hi, everybody who's online. I see a bunch of you there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Oh, good. This means you can hear me. That's good.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When are the last days of classes, like the 13th? Or
The last day of this class is, sorry, I'll let you know. I think it's next Wednesday.
okay.
Yeah, which, or what? Yeah,
That'll be like April 7th.
April 6th, I believe.
April 6th.
Hmm.
Also, are you gonna move the date for the what's called reading response or no?
I can be flexible with it.
Okay.
Last day of the term, the 12th. Oh, maybe I just didn't finish my. Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess it would be Friday then.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, what was your question?
When are the like reading responses due? They still do the same day? Because you said you'd push it.
Oh yeah, March 1st. Yeah. Now that I realize we actually have more time than I thought, I'll push it back.
Okay.
So I'll make an announcement to that effect.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the 12th. Yeah, okay. Oops. Anyway, dreams. We were talking about dreams and why it's difficult to recall them. We hadn't really gotten to the why, but there are some answers as to why dreams can be difficult to remember. They're so difficult to remember that a lot of people have the impression that we don't dream every night, or some people say like, oh, I never dream, but that's not true. You dream multiple times a night. And as we saw last time, the longer the night goes, the longer your REM periods or rapid eye movement periods get. So if you're sleeping in the morning on the weekend, you probably will have quite a long dream. And if you wake up from that dream, you'll probably remember it. So dreams are so weird. Why would they be difficult to remember? You would think, just intuitively, that if you're dreaming about some bizarre scenario, that it would be easy to remember because it's so out of the ordinary. Yet, we don't notice it's so out of the ordinary, at least usually we don't, when we're actually having the dream. And that could be because there's less activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex during REM sleep. And that part of the brain has to do with critical thinking and executive function and stuff like that. So maybe that's one reason. Our critical faculties are just not good at noticing the oddities that happen in dreams. And because they go unnoticed, maybe they go unremembered. Another possible explanation comes from psychophysiologist Stephen Laberge, who's actually done lots of research on lucid dreaming. I think his idea is adapted from Revansuo's threat response theory of dreaming. That is that dreaming is meant to help us sort of mentally rehearse dealing with potential threats or dangers, kind of like practice for dealing with a dangerous environment. But if we remember that the literal events of our dreams, this could get us into trouble. Laberge uses an example like this. We've got a cat and a dog. The cat lives next door to the dog, which is quite aggressive. And maybe the cat has a dream that the dog has run away. If the cat woke up and believed for lack of a better term, that the dog was no longer there, it might wander over and get itself eaten, which would not be very adaptive. So that's one possibility. Remember that most mammals dream, so we can assume, or at least I think the assumption here, is that most mammals also do not remember their dreams. But of course, we can't really ask them, right? Maybe we could ask some, if we had some apes that spoke sign language, we might be able to ask them. But I'm not sure if they would have the concept of dreams, or hey, maybe they don't remember them, so they couldn't tell us, even if we could teach them sign language, right? So I don't know. So if by recalling dreams easily, we risk getting things wrong about the way the world is, we risk forming false beliefs on that basis, well, that would be maladaptive. But if dreams are hard to remember, then we don't really need to worry about that. Although I don't know. Yeah, we can't often determine that we're dreaming on the basis of all the weird stuff we dream while we're dreaming. But when we've woken up, and if we do remember our dreams, we're often like, oh, wow, that was strange. You know, we recognize it right away if we recall it. And I don't know, I'm not sure if Laberge gives animals enough credit here. Do animals also dream absurd things like we do? We don't know. What's that? Maybe. I mean, I see my dogs, and I have a dog, and we have two cats. And I saw them, you know, I often see them dreaming. You know, they do that little twitchy thing. And I think to myself, what are they dreaming about? Are they dreaming about running around outside, or like, are my cats hunting stuff or playing with other cats? What are they doing? You know, I don't know. Or are they dreaming about something ridiculous? Like, is my cat enormous and destroying a city, perhaps? You know, who knows? We've got some stuff in the, yeah, Silken says it would be interesting to find out. I agree. If only we could ask them. If only. And what's up here? Oh, Zoe reports a dream. Walked from Montreal to Detroit, woke up and went, wait a minute. Yeah. Yeah. We often catch the absurdity. Although I don't know. I do remember waking up from dreams when I was young and thinking that, oh, this is real. And then, you know, I have to kind of clear the cobwebs out before.
I hated that because I would always get dreams like on Christmas, like on Boxing Day Eve or something, or like the day after Christmas, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm waking up like I got this, and then I go downstairs and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it was a dream. Like, yeah, disappointment. And also, if you have like anxiety dreams or nightmares, and this maybe lends some credence to the threat response theory, although it makes me question why you wouldn't want to recall things. I mean, just to be clear, rehearsing for threats is Revan-Suo's idea. This explanation for lack of dream recall or difficulty with dream recall is Laberge. But, you know, I've had anxiety dreams where I get up and I'm like, oh no, that happened. Oh, wait a minute. No, that thing I was dreaming about didn't happen. Oh, I'm so glad, you know. And we have more dreams that deal with negative situations, typically, at least what we gather from when we ask people to report their dreams. We dream more about threats and unpleasant things than pleasant things. So anyway, maybe we don't remember them for the same reason we don't act out our dreams, right? It wouldn't be beneficial, it wouldn't be dangerous, but why do this in the first place? Why dream in the first place? We're not quite sure yet. Even with all our modern thinking on the topic, we're still not sure. Ancient societies weren't sure either. In fact, they often attributed dreams to the divine, right? In ancient Greece, there was a god called Morpheus that was worshipped, and he was the kind of like main dream god. Morpheus means shaper. He shapes the dream stuff, right? That's the idea. And there are also other little gods, lesser gods, called Oneiroi. And Oneiroi literally means dreams. And they preside over various aspects of dreaming. The Greeks were, polytheistic, animistic, and, if you had a dream and you told someone about it, that other person would probably have thought, oh, God brought you that dream, or that dream was a god. If you dreamed of a god, well, that actually was a god in your dream, right? This is the mythos of dreaming for the ancient Greeks. And of course, other cultures often attribute the same sort of importance to dreams. Dreams are prophetic, or dreams come from the gods or God, right? The Australian Aboriginal people, for example, in their mythology, the universe was actually dreamt into existence, right? Or if you want to get a little more Western, in the book of Daniel in the Bible, you've got the prophet Daniel, and he interprets the dreams of King Nebuchadnezzar II, the king of Babylon. So, dreams have been pretty significant throughout history, and even some scientific breakthroughs have been credited to dreams. For example, Kekule, he was a chemist, and he had a dream of an Ouroboros. What's an Ouroboros? Yeah, the snake devouring its own tail. It's like a circle. It's infinite, right? He had this dream of this Ouroboros, which inspired him in his research, and eventually he discovered the chemical structure of the benzene molecule, which is sort of like a circular hydrocarbon sort of molecule, right? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And these are not, this is certainly not the only example. There are other examples which escape me at the moment.
John Knight is one of those people, or John Knight and Paul McCartney both have reported that they would dream melodies. And write songs.
And then wake up and write them down and
wake up and go to the piano.
yeah. And that's good. We shouldn't limit our discussion to scientific breakthroughs or scientific inspiration. What about artistic inspiration? Dreams seem perfect for that. Dreams, you could turn dreams into cool, weird stories, right? Why not? Maybe, oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's also, I'm just trying to think of dream examples.
Yeah.
There's a Melissa McCarthy, I forget which one. But I think it's the one where, I think it's Tammy actually, where it was a dream that she had, and she woke up and told her husband, who's also a movie producer, and he was like, you should do that.
Yeah, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And
Oh, really?
yeah, probably do the method, the dynamic flip with the 1847. Had a dream, and everyone there's fighting in it. And have curved flips.
Huh.
Russian general, and they're no, we should make that.
Wow. Geez. So there's lots of examples, both technical, scientific, or creative. I think Freud here is probably the first guy to give a modern account of dreaming, and he would probably say, yeah, if you like, dreams probably could inspire some creativity. But more than that, dreams can tell you about yourself, is what he would have said. Silken, just real quick, another example. Silken in the chat says, Remedios Varo based her paintings in dreams. So another artistic example, right? So thank you, that's great. Freud explained, he was probably the first modern thinker to try and explain dreams scientifically. His explanation of dreams is not really the one we go with today, because it's a psychoanalytic explanation of dreams. But if you want to read about them, and you probably should, it's interesting stuff, you can read The Interpretation of Dreams. That's his book on the topic. So dreams thought that, Freud thought that many dreams are actually a sort of unconscious wish fulfillment, right? We have unconscious wishes, drives, and desires that are repressed into the unconscious, right? And this all has to do with something a theme that occurs throughout Freud's work called the return of the repressed, right? Whatever you repress, you want to have an integrated psyche. You want to be able to get around in the world and do what you need to do and not be nervous or frightened or sexually aroused all the time, right? So you cram all that into the subconscious. But Freud says, inevitably, things that you repress will return. And one of the ways they return is in dreams, right? Fears. You might have an anxiety dream. You're being chased by your professor, perhaps, except he's 30 feet tall and breathes fire. What would Freud say? He'd say, well, you probably have some unconscious anxieties about university, right? That's maybe what Freud would tell you. But your dreams are not in this case censoring them, but kind of encoding it, symbolizing it. The censored stuff really has to do with the wish fulfillment, which might have to do with certain desires. And of course, Freud, talks a lot about the Oedipus complex and the Electrus complex and those, penis envy, those kinds of things that get repressed and then inevitably kind of express themselves in dreams, but they're censored. That's why he talks about, for Freud, like swords are like phallic, right? It's your mind censoring what's supposed to be a penis, but instead it's like, here's a sword. And right. And, yeah. Well, not just Austria, but like most of Europe. And after Austria, Freud ended up in England because of the war, because of persecution against the Jews. Freud was Jewish, right? So when the Nazis came to power, he was gone by then, right? Zoe says she gets crushed by giant fruit, maybe fear of scurvy. Maybe. I mean, I did see something on the news years and years ago about undergraduate students who were getting scurvy because they were eating too much Kraft dinner and not enough actual food. Yeah, crazy. So, guys, everyone eat your vegetables, eat your fruit and vegetables when you're an undergraduate, definitely. So where were we? Right. Concealing the fulfillment of a wish. Everybody, Freud was to us, he seems like, wow, what a weird dude. But like you say, yeah, European society was very sexually repressed, in the literal sense, not in the psychoanalytic sense. Yeah.
I feel like there's years that might have been like a little bit like progressive, like obviously they were progressive, but like the idea to like explain certain things. I feel like penis envy was one of those things that was like a very new concept. It's like, oh, this is why women don't like men. It's like, yeah,
it was yeah, like
paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's
like
that.
I feel like further back in history, like women were like less subject of interest with this kind of thing, but like this is kind of like exploring women in a different way, and it's also an interest for men, like not a feminine.
Yeah, I mean, Freud's work had incredible popular reach. He's kind of like, he was a psychoanalyst. Well, he started as a neurologist, actually. And the reason why he invented psychoanalysis is because he had patients with whom he could not find anything physically wrong, but who still had like anxieties, neuroses, mental disorders. So he thought, well, maybe it's, to relate it to consciousness, it's not the brain, it's the mind, right? And before Freud, the one thing that you really have to give Freud credit for is that prior to Freud, the Aristotelian idea of the human being as the rational animal was quite widespread. It was, for 2,000 years, this had been the thing, free will, complement that with you know, the sort of Judeo-Christian outlook in Europe where, oh yeah, you know, we're free because God made us that way. Man is the rational animal. It's this whole Judeo-Christian Hellenistic thing. Freud comes along and says, no, your life is actually being driven by all of this stuff in your unconscious mind. Like, what are you talking about, the rational animal? You've got all this unconscious drives and desires going on. And that explains your behavior. And that explains why you're nervous all the time, or you have such and such a bad habit, or why you have this recurring dream, right? And it seems weird to us now. We look back at Freud and, you know, oh, Oedipus complex, penis envy. What's he doing with that cigar all the time, right? People actually said that to him.
Really?
Yeah, and he said sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, right?
But
That's
sometimes.
sometimes.
All
All the time he had a cigar.
But not all the time you have a cigar, but only sometimes it's just a cigar.
Well, that means that if he were to, the cigar doesn't symbolize anything phallic for Freud. You know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes.
Sometimes.
Like, it's not an absolute.
He
It's not
means
always
in my
cigar.
case, but not everyone else's case, or something like that, right? So yeah, there's you know, there's a lot of this. The very famous idea of the Oedipus complex comes from this book, which is not what it sounds like. People think that the Oedipus complex means you want to you consciously want to, you know, with your mom. But no, that's not what it means, because the myth, the play Oedipus Tyrannus, the whole thing is Oedipus doesn't know it's his mother until the end. Like Tiresias, the seer, tries to tell him. He's a blind seer, but he sees more, you know, because he's the seer. He says, Oedipus, you have eyes, but you do not see. You are this miasma here. You're the problem. You're why the gods are pissed at us. Why? Well, turns out he had killed his dad and taken up with his mom. And when he finds that out, what does he do? Yeah.
Wasn't there like more to it? Like, wasn't he like cursed or something? Not cursed, but like.
Yeah, Oedipus means swollen-footed one.
Right.
He had like a club foot, and his parents left him out. They were going to kill him via exposure. But he breaks free, you know, he grows up. One day there's a passerby and he kills him and takes his horse and gets away or whatever. That was his father.
He was fated to kill his father.
Yeah.
And so he ran away and then.
And of course, yeah, you can't run away.
That's what yeah.
You can't run away from your fate. Yeah, because in the Greeks, they have their three spinners at the fates. What are their names? Clotho, Atropos, and Lachesis. So like spinner, allotter, and cutter. Yeah. So your fate is woven, right? So, but Oedipus doesn't know, you know, any of this. So he stabs his eyes out, and Freud's like, oh, well, the eyes stand in for the male member. So it's like he's castrating himself, which is, yeah, which would have been the punishment for incest in ancient Greece. They would just, you know, but, you know, if you want to read myths or watch movies, understand literature really well, Freud is awesome for that. I don't know how good he is for understanding the mind, but he's great for like art and literature. So do you have your hand up or?
No.
Okay.
So I do want to think, because like I read this study about it's like an insight of how people see partners and stuff, and I found it interesting because it's kind of Freudian thought, where people sort of subconsciously take partners that are very similar to their parents, which I think kind of makes sense, because the only parental figure that you have, the only figure of a successful relationship that you probably have, like, are probably your parents.
Yeah.
So
It's yeah, well, it's kind of like they serve as your prototype for your concept of, you know, an adult partner, right?
Yeah.
so we can explain that without getting all Freudian with it. But yeah, there is a superficial, like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
like,
Like on base level, Freud is pretty like progressive and pretty like, wow, this is pretty interesting. But then you get down to that.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of things though that like, I think you don't right as well, like, in terms of like, I mean, honestly, his theories are very, I don't think most of his theories are right, but that elements of them are, you know? Like,
Yeah,
because like, for example, I don't know, in my day, something really small would happen. And then I won't ever like think about it, but it will happen.
yeah.
And it is like, and then it sort of affects me, even though like, I didn't realize it did at the point.
Yeah. Freud called that day residue, by the way, the sort of everyday stuff that shows up in your dream. And yeah, I agree. That's what I meant before when I said, you know, the one thing I think you can say he's correct about is that the unconscious plays such a huge role in our life. Nowadays, we call it the cognitive unconscious, not the Freudian unconscious, but the basic idea is thanks to Freud. So Freud thinks that dreams maybe tell us something about ourselves, but Flanagan thinks that dreams are, quote, evolutionary epiphenomena. So there's no causal role for dreams in our mental life. He says dreaming came along as a free rider on a system designed to think and sleep. So dreams are like just a byproduct of a brain that can do all these other things: think, talk, perceive, imagine. Dreams are just like an extra thing that they can do. I wouldn't call this an epiphenomenon. I would call this a spandrel. A spandrel is a term from evolutionary biology for something that has just kind of come along with another system that evolved for a purpose. Well, vestigial structures. Oh, what happened to Zoom?
Like doesn't fade out, it kind of just.
Sorry, everyone, I'm unmuted now. We were just talking about spandrels, which are, you know, things that just kind of come along as a consequence of the evolution of some other trait. So in this case, Owen Flanagan says dreams are evolutionary epiphenomena. I say, well, no, because here we're saying that dreams don't have a function, but they can have effects. Well, then they're not epiphenomena if they can have effects. Right? If they can have effects, that means that they are causal. If you wake up from a bad dream, you're like, ah, right? Maybe you're in a cold sweat and you're like, oh, I'm really glad that that 50-foot tall fire breathing professor isn't chasing me anymore. So
Don't like this one. And also, if you get the reverse of that, if we don't dream, it has a causal effect. So it does play a role.
yeah, yeah. If we deprive people of proper sleep, and REM sleep is part of proper sleep, they go insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has a causal role, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I would say he's probably just picked the wrong word. I would have said dreams might be a spandrel. There's something that came along with a system that can do other things. Our brain evolved to perceive, to think, to imagine. Well, heck, actually, imagination could be a spandrel now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think the imagination has a causal role as well.
Yeah, certain applications of it. I mean, well, spandrels do have causal roles. They just come along as a byproduct, and they may or may not be handy.
Right.
They may be selected for because it turns out that they have a function, in which case they'd cease to be a spandrel, right? Well, maybe, but but I don't know, because consciousness just seems so important for dealing with novel things, right? What if imagination is a spandrel of multiple draft theory? Yeah, maybe. I mean, what I mean by that is that, okay, so if imagination is just a byproduct of a brain that can, have imagery, we have a visual system that I'm using online right now. We call this online when I'm engaging with the world. But if I close my eyes and imagine a pink elephant, well, then I'm using it offline, right? But I'm using the same system, right? So if imagining a pink elephant, that could be a spandrel-like imagination application, but I can also use my imagination to solve problems. Maybe I'm hunting and gathering, and I'm trying to imagine where I might find the best food. And I try and recollect spots that I've seen the best berries. And then I imagine, well, maybe I have to find another place kind of like this to find better berries or something, right? So in that case, it would cease to be a spandrel because it's actually doing something. Hobson also thinks dreams are epiphenomena, and he points to the fact that most people don't remember their dreams, and they're fine, right? And that's true. Most of us don't remember them. I don't remember what I was dreaming about last night. I try to think of it, but yeah, I can't.
I remember like maybe someone who might have been in my dream.
Yeah.
Like other things can happen in your life that you don't remember, but they can still have like a habit, an effect on your habit.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah. Freud would be into that. But yeah, I mean, like maybe if you don't remember your dreams, they can unconsciously sort of color your day. Like that's how I think of it.
You can still remember like the feeling. Well, I don't know, not all the time, but sometimes you can the feeling of the dream. I think might affect you if you don't know.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like, I mean, you could have conceivably, like, you could have like a nightmare and not remember it, but still be in a bad mood, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. In that case, I would say, yeah, I disagree with Hobson because, and here he is here saying dreams may support memory consolidate. I mean, what? Yeah. I don't know what he wants. But okay, Revansuo has his threat simulation theory. Dreams evolved to simulate threats and to practice dealing with those threats. And modern dreams, seem to contain more threatening events than we actually face in our day-to-day lives. And Humphrey has a similar idea. He says that maybe dreaming is a sort of mental play. He says, dreaming represents the most audacious and ingenious of nature's tricks for educating her psychologists. Each of us is like a little scientist, and dreams are the mind playing. How do I mean, look, most mammals dream. Most mammals also play. Like in real life, that's how they learn, right? That's how they learn how to hunt or to get along with others.
What about golf?
Oh, dolphins play.
What do they do?
What's that?
I thought we were talking about, I forgot, I thought we were talking about dolphins.
They don't dream, but they do play.
Oh,
Yeah, they play with seaweed
Yeah.
and sometimes food. Yeah.
Just how it's talking about like unconscious play, and at first I was going to denounce the like practicing threatening events in real life, but how does that serve a purpose if we don't remember our dreams, if we don't remember like what we practiced? But if it's a subconscious process in which this play is happening, and it's a subconscious process like our flight and fight or flight,
Yeah.
like arrival, like that, it kind of makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this happened in a dream, but like it's not a like just because it's not a conscious process.
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't,
Like you're working out motor programs, perhaps for
Yeah.
escaping danger that you don't remember the scenario, but those are still there. Yeah, exactly. So really Humphrey, I think, is kind of just like broadening out Revansuo's idea. Maybe it doesn't just include dealing with danger, but dealing with all kinds of things. Dreams may be the mind's way of tinkering with potential ways the world could be, right? Again, I said this, I don't understand Hobson. They're epiphenomenal, but they support memory consolidation. Well, then they're not epiphenomenal, are they? They sound pretty important, actually. So I don't know. At the end of the day, maybe dreams are for learning to deal with new things, new social situations, physical situations, things in the environment, mental, intellectual, emotional, could be for so many things. Because think about it, when you're in a dream, you have the same range of possible experiences that you can have. You can be happy or sad in a dream, right? You can be frightened. You can be doing something, or you could be doing nothing, right? So, and the important thing is, as we emphasized a moment ago, we don't actually need to remember our dreams for this to all work, for dreams to support memory consolidation, or for them to be a form of play or a form of threat, danger, response rehearsal. Zoe says, I was going to say dreams are the brain's way to deal with absurdity, surprises. Maybe. Well, the thing is, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. I wish you guys could see the chat. I can't share the chat, but that was hilarious, Zoe. Go and look that up. Monty Python, the Spanish Inquisition. No one expects them. But dreams, like you say, are unexpected themselves. But I don't know, like, again, we seldom notice how weird and unexpected the content of our dreams are. So it's all a mystery. So how do they work? How does the brain put a dream together? This is one theory, and it's been put forward by Laberge in one of his books. I'm not sure how much of this is building on previous work. This is probably some of the first stuff I read about the human mind back in the day. Really cool stuff. Well, the brain, first thing you need to know is the brain is nearly as active during REM sleep as it is when we're awake. So if you were to look at a brain under a functional magnetic resonance imager, you'd see all kinds of activity going on. The reason why, according to Laberge, is because the brain, when you're dreaming, is doing the same thing that your waking brain is doing. It's making a representation of your body and the world, right? Like right now, like, am I looking at my hands? Am I? I think I'm looking at a representation of my hands, right? Because I'm an indirect realist, or maybe I'm a transcendental idealist. I don't know. Like Kant, right? This is phenomena. What is the noumenal? What is the noumena really like? Well, there's no what it's really like. Things are only like things with a mind to perceive them. Yeah. Or think about, we talk about the grand illusion, the idea that visual experience is is a representation. It's not the world itself we're seeing. What we're seeing is a representation of the world generated by the brain. Well, according to Laberge, that's what the brain's doing when we're asleep too. Building a tunnel through reality, I think was the phrase we decided we liked. Yeah. Like a tunnel through reality, I think is Hofstadter. Yeah. So we want to avoid Cartesian materialism. We want to avoid the homunculus fallacy, right? So you have to be careful the way you think about this. The brain isn't representing the world, you know, for anyone. There's no little person inside the robot. There's no ghost in the machine. But the idea is basically a kind of indirect realism, that we have contact with the world. And, you know, what this all really does exist, and it's really here, and we can know things about it. But the way we perceive it is a representation, right? That the brain puts together for us. And the brain does this in REM sleep. The brain represents a world. But where does it get what it needs to do that? Remember last time when we tried to test whether we were all asleep or awake? We read that sign, looked away, and read it again. And the letters didn't change. Why? Well, because there really is a door in the world that says emergency exit only on it, right? So I can look away and look back, and my brain represents it the same way every time. But when I'm in a dream, I don't have that input coming in from the external world because I'm asleep. So how does the brain do it? Well, it's got to use information from elsewhere, from an internal source, rather than an external source. So what do we have there? We have memories, and we have emotions, and we have expectations. And those are what Laberge thinks help us to, help our brains to generate a dream. So he calls these schemas. Philosophers would call these concepts. Concept is a technical term, right? That means like an idea, like a mental item, like a prototype of, like what Plato would have called the forms that exist out there in some kind of ultimate reality. Well, concepts are like forms, but they're in the mind. So dreams are kind of built through association between active and inactive concepts. And this can help to explain why dreams are so weird. When we're awake, as I mentioned before, we have a stable representation of the world because the external world is stable, right? In real life, signs just don't change their letters spontaneously. Not how it works. Well, maybe certain signs like those scrolling ones, but not like this kind of sign.
One of those things that somebody from like the 18th century would break out to a sign that the billboard changed.
Yeah, like what trickery is this? You know, it's witchcraft. But, when we're dreaming, there's no stable source of information from the external world to build an experience on. So what's that? Well, it's not that the brain grows crazy, but the brain is kind of like running in stream of consciousness mode, right? So maybe you had something happen through the day and the memory of that sticks with you. I don't know, maybe you tried a new kind of sandwich. I don't know. I'm going to get a sandwich after class. I'm hungry, so I'm thinking about sandwiches. So maybe I have like the best sandwich ever. And it sticks with me throughout the day. I was like, wow, I got to tell all my friends, 5 stars on Yelp. Yeah, awesome. Then I go to bed. And maybe that sandwich schema or my sandwich concept is still active. And other concepts become activated because of associated memory. So maybe I have a dream where I find myself in a bakery and I'm making the bread that was on the sandwich, right? But then something else could happen. Maybe I associate bakeries with I don't know, certain television programs, like cooking shows. All of a sudden, Gordon Ramsay comes into the bakery, like, you can't bake, get out, you know? So that's how dreams work, according to Laberge. Silicon says, what happened with someone who is born blind? What do they dream about? That's a really good question. And I have to admit that I'm not really sure. But you know what I would do? I'm sure there must be some accounts of dreams from people with blindness. There must be, that we could find. I would expect maybe their dreams are about sounds or smells or touches, but I wouldn't know. You know, I would have to look that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of my friends was explaining to me one of the theories behind Deja Vu, and it's fairly similar to dreams, but almost like we're aware and like inputs. So like the Deja Vu arises, one of the theories is that Deja Vu arises when we have a familiar stimulus in an unfamiliar environment. And so taking familiar stimulus and just constantly like kind of cycling in these stimulus can like create a range. Like,
Yeah.
like dream state, obviously, like almost like when you're dreaming, it feels like it's very like you're experiencing deja vu, it's not real.
Yeah.
Because you have like something in your mind. It's like, oh, I've seen like a chair of that like general shape before, but not in this room. And then I've also heard like a sound. There's like a certain stimulus that
Yeah.
something in a different spot. It's kind of like, but
Yeah, it's kind of like I think of deja vu as kind of like a familiarity hiccup.
Yeah.
You know, where you know you're like, all the parts are there. I've seen them all elsewhere, but and I covered deja. I talk about deja vu in my did I talk? Yeah, I had a very brief lecture on it in my paranormal class. Just because it's one of those things that every day everyone's had deja vu at some point. And it seems kind of like weird, like it's kind of creepy, but there must be an explanation. So yeah. Okay, let's go. So firstly, that's one reason why dreams are weird. There's no stable source of information to build an experience on. So your brain is kind of winging it. Your brain is in like, stream of consciousness mode, as I said before. Oh, hey, Zoe, come on in. Oh, no worries. I understand. I had to grab an Uber this morning or a Lyft or whatever it's called. Also, as we learned, the prefrontal cortex, especially the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, is less active. So all of our, reasoning and executive function, our ability to plan things that we rely on in waking life, we just don't have that in dreams, or at least not to as great an extent as we do when we're awake. Dennett's theory of dreaming has to be the weirdest one, though. And normally I'm like, go Daniel Dennett. Tell me about multiple drafts, tell me about all the Marylands on the wall and how I'm not representing all of them. But this is weird. This is the cassette theory of dreaming, or an account of dreams as, quote, instantaneous memory insertions occurring at the moment of awakening. And Blackmore talks about this quite a bit in this chapter, in her chapter on dreams. But I'm just going to give you the sort of bare bones account. We have two processes at work on this theory. There's a composition process. This is what actually happens during REM sleep. The brain composes a dream narrative. It's not happening to us, but it's like it's being written, like a piece of music on a tape, right? Oh, really?
we have our own hero's journey.
But the journey is not a journey like right now where I'm lecturing and doing things.
Yeah.
It's just composed. Remember, Dennett is saying dreams are not experiences. On Laberge's theory, dreams are, right? This is an experience right now. Laberge would literally say, my brain is dreaming up a representation of reality and its experience. But Dennett says, no, that's not what happens. There's a dream narrative that gets composed, but it's not an experience. And then when you wake up, the memory is inserted like a cassette. So Laberge would say reality is like going to a concert and hearing the music being played from start to finish. Dennett would say it's all already on the tape and you just pop it in and play it. And it seems like it's unfolding in front of you, but all that was already there on the tape.
At the moment.
Right?
Though, like at the moment that you wait, like as in like he's saying you experience the dream like right before.
You don't experience the dream. No.
So
You
not
you
as-
remember,
like,
you recollect what seems to have been an experience, but it's your brain playing a trick on you. Yeah.
So you're saying, but we don't.
Sorry, Matt.
We have fake memories when we're sleeping, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, your brain makes up a fake memory that you recall once you wake up.
But it doesn't happen, like, it doesn't play out per se.
Yes, exactly. Isn't that
Doesn't
weird?
Play out while you're in REM sleep, you're not actually dreaming. Is that what he's saying?
Kind of. I mean, you're dreaming, but again, with Dennett, dreaming is not what we think it is. It's all an illusion, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, with the kind of like audio tape allegory, are dreams kind of like remixes then of like previous experiences? Because
Huh.
I,
You know,
like,
I
they take a lot of outside information.
yeah, you know, I've never thought of it that way, but that's an interesting way of putting it.
If it's taking root from experiences,
Yeah, I know.
then are we not?
Well, don't
like,
worry.
some level of experience?
I know, but don't worry. Laberge to the rescue. Yes, okay, it's coming. Just wait for it. So yeah, it's inserted. There's nothing that it's like to dream. There's something that it's like to have had a dream, then it would say,
Yeah.
but there's nothing that it's like to dream.
Well, it's like, what we can find that's true.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that when I'm having a dream, I'm having an experience.
But your puppy's like, your puppy's dreaming and he's kicking his legs. and,
Oh,
like,
I know, but just wait for it. I'm gonna give you the thing that'll
drop
put
it,
your mind at
drop it,
ease.
Josh, that's cool.
Yeah. Blackmore thinks, okay, if this is true, if then it's right, it's a difference that doesn't make any difference. Because, you know, functionally in our lives, if this was true, nothing would change, right? We'd still go to sleep, wake up, seem to have had dreams and no big deal, right? Right? It's just weird. It's just weird to think about. But lucid dreams can show us why Dennett might be incorrect.
What did Dennis actually talk about?
I don't know that he's talked about them all that much.
Kind of working through.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really heard him discuss lucid dreams to any great extent. But we all know what a lucid dream is, right? It's a dream during which you know you're dreaming. The term was coined by an early 20th century Dutch psychologist named Frederick van Eden. Before that, we had all different weird names for them, like what are some of them that I remember? We had sorry?
I've heard waking dream.
Yeah, a waking dream, a clear dream or dreaming clear.
Clairvoyance or something, that's pretty bizarre.
Well, clairvoyance is
Oh, no, that's no.
Ye- yeah, that refers to you know, like
That's like a big journey.
knowing stuff with magic powers or whatever. But anyway, lucid dreams, you know, this is the term we get. It comes from Van Eden. And they've been recorded since antiquity. But for a long time, scientists and philosophers too thought that it was impossible. You know, they lumped lucid dreaming in with stuff like psychics and horoscopes and stuff like that, right? They thought it's not scientific, it's nonsense.
I don't know if another week.
I guess not. Or if they did, they probably didn't remember it. There's a causal thing of dreams.
Lucid
Yeah.
dream is when you realize you're in a dream. I thought it was like So where you can interact and control.
Well, there are varying degrees of control that you can have, right? Yeah, like if, you know, I've had them where I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming. Cool. Well, and I keep on doing whatever I was doing, almost like it makes no difference. But then sometimes I have one where I'm like more aware. So there are degrees of awareness. So I'll have one where I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming. Hey, I don't have to do this anymore. I can go do something else. Let's go get one of those sandwiches, you know? So there are degrees of awareness and control. And with practice, you get better at it too, right? But people believe this because the philosophical reasoning at the time, and this is kind of what Dennett is he's using this is what he's building off of. This was what the foundational, the philosophical foundation for his work was, you know, in the 50s and 60s. He wrote this in the 70s or 80s, I think, but to have a lucid dream would involve being conscious during sleep, which is a contradiction. You can't be conscious when you're unconscious. That's what the conventional wisdom said. But then two different researchers independently verified scientifically beyond reasonable doubt that they were happening. Keith Hearn in the UK in 1979 and Stephen Laberge in United States, in California. I think Hearn was at Hull and Laberge was at Stanford, if I remember correctly. But each of them used participants in their experiments that were skilled at having lucid dreams. Laberge calls them onironauts, right? Explorers of the dream world, like astronauts, right? It's a cool name, yeah. Now, both of these researchers knew that the rapid eye movements that we make in REM sleep followed the gaze of dreamers. In other words, what dreamers are looking at in the dream scene, that's the way their eyes move. How was this discovered? Well, it was actually kind of funny. It was somebody was dreaming about watching a game of ping pong, and on the EEG, you can see the eye movements on raw EEG because it's so much noise in the muscles, their electrical signals. So they noticed this back and forth, left, right, very regular, and they asked him, what was that about? He said, oh, I was dreaming about watching a game of table tennis and I was just following the ball back and forth. So they got this idea. We could get people who are having a lucid dream to signal to us in the sleep lab using eye movements. We could use yeah, I know, right? This is insane. This is some Inception stuff right here, right? Yeah. So they got their participants to they came up with a sequence of movements that they agreed upon. Like, okay, so when you realize you're dreaming, make this signal. When you do the experimental task, usually it's something like counting to 10 or something simple, make another signal, right?
This is super dystopian, but at what point would they be able to change eye movement analogs into like being able to functionally do work? And so people are forced to do work in their sleep.
What's a Black Mirror?
Yeah. Yeah, like, well, that reminds me of Futurama, where
ads in the
yeah,
dream,
you get
yeah.
ads in your dreams,
Yeah.
you know, like how you're dreaming, have some bachelor chow, like, you know. So yeah, that's dystopian. I wonder if anyone's explored that. If not, you should write something. That would be cool.
I
know?
don't want to give anybody the idea though.
Well, that's why you have to write it before someone steals it, right? So
fair enough, fair
yeah.
enough.
Okay, so they could detect these signals, and Laberge more than Keith Hearn, because Keith Hearn was actually a parapsychologist. Anybody know what a parapsychologist is? So parapsychology is kind of now a dead discipline. But for a while, it was an area that sought to understand psi phenomena, you know, PSI, telekinesis, telepathy.
Wasn't the guy in the Ghostbusters A
parapsychologist. Yes,
Parapsychologist,
yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly. Ghost hunting is another one.
Parapsychologist and epiphenomenalist, that was who he was, yeah.
Huh, an epiphenomenalist. Huh, weird. But yeah, so basically, Keith Hearn is doing other nonsense stuff. And Laberge was a psychophysiologist. That means he studies the mind-body relationship. And he focuses on that relationship during sleep. So one of the things that they'll do is look at the subjective sense of the passage of time, right? So it takes about the same amount of time for people to estimate, that is count to 10, estimate 10 seconds in a dream as it does in waking life. And I think that this suggests that Dennett's doesn't really have the right picture. It seems that Laberge's work shows me that I'm having a real experience going on in real time, right? Go ahead.
So that says that like lucid dream time and normal time is 1-to-1, but I've seen other where that like you experience dreams at an increased rate.
Well, Laberge thinks that this might be a trick the brain plays by employing the same sort of thing that a movie editor might to make it seem like more time has passed. You know, we go and watch a movie that might cover a few days, a week, a year, or a whole life, but it doesn't feel like it takes that long, right? Because we edit it, we cut it here, and we add this scene there. So Laberge thinks that we might have like a story concept that gives our dreams narrative structure when they seem to take place over longer time scales.
Okay.
You know, because we can see like the neurons in the brain aren't firing any faster or slower when we have a dream like that. So it must be something the brain is doing, something the mind is doing to sort of make it seem that way.
I was gonna say maybe like recalling it. You think that during the recall it's new, and so because you're experiencing it all during the recall, you think that all of it's new and it's all immediately happening then.
Yeah.
Something
Well,
like that.
and that's the thing. Dennett's theory actually could explain dreams that seem to take like a lifetime. You know, you have a dream and you're like, oh, I lived an entire life as someone else. Well, you're not really dreaming all that in that space, but Dennett's theory could explain that. So I don't know. What's that? Yeah, time distortion, I believe they call it.
Passing and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes I think time can seem to just go super fast. It's kind of like when you're driving, right? The old automatic driving example, and you kind of lose some time. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I think we might actually be able to finish these slides.
Also looked up, contemporary blind people things, you know, stuff like that.
Well, I don't really know what yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that. Like Silken's question earlier, like people who are blind, what do they dream about? You'd really have to ask them, right?
Oh, I'm just saying, I was like, reading a study about it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we could talk about that. But let's do out-of-body experiences real quick. How many? Okay, I'll probably tell you a little bit about this next time. But we should decide what we want to talk about after that. But first, out-of-body experiences real quick. These are very curious, and they're similar to dreams because I think they actually are a type of dream. OBEs are like a sort of weird, often classified as a sort of paranormal phenomenon where you leave your body. I mean, your ego, what? Well, that's different. That's like, I'm going into another dimension or something, but which I also do not believe is a thing. But with out-of-body experiences, you have the sensation that you are leaving the physical body. So Lynn Levitin and Stephen Laberge, they argue that they are probably dreams or very similar to dreams. They're also related to false awakenings. Remember, we talked about false awakenings, a dream in which you dream you've woken up. But then, to your horror or surprise, you realize you're still dreaming.
I only have one of those in my life, and I don't even know if I actually woke up or not, because it's such a weird thing. I
Yeah.
started off in a dream being chased off by something, and I woke up and told my family, and then that led into another dream. But when I woke up for real, people recalled me talking about said dream and me
Oh.
running around the house.
Weird.
Yeah. Did I have sweet dreams or did I not have sweet dreams?
Wow. Yeah, that's
When did I start doing things?
yeah, that's really weird. It's yeah, like false awakenings can really mess with you. But we talked about this before, right? Out of body experiences are probably related to sleep paralysis, which can also help us to explain things like the incubus and succubus myth, right? These were demons in the Dark Ages that were believed to come and basically, you know, take advantage of sleeping people. The incubus is a male demon that would go after women. The succubus would prey on men. Of course, these are probably just sleep paralysis. You wake up, but not fully. You're awake, you're consciously aware of the external world, but your body's still paralyzed because your body is still basically in REM sleep, and you're hallucinating because your brain is also still dreaming. So you might hallucinate a demon or something, right? So that's the incubus or the succubus. Sometimes it's called the old hag, right?
Are your eyes open?
Well, they might be briefly, because you could fall back asleep quite quickly and not know that you've fallen back asleep.
It's gonna be like, is like hallucinating or like?
Yeah, basically. Or if you fall back asleep, you can very quickly slip back and be asleep, and your brain keeps representing what it was just doing, and then you're dreaming again, but you don't know you're dreaming, and you think you're awake, right? It's probably sometimes a bit like that, and sometimes a bit like the other thing. Yeah.
How common are out of body experiences naturally as opposed to lucid dreams, dreams, and Deja Vu kind of?
Well, you know, I don't know. I can only say from personal experiences that I've had lots of lucid dreams. When I was young, I like did all the stuff to practice doing it right, like all the methods and everything. What's that?
Did it work?
Oh yeah. Still to this day, like if I get a good sleep and I can sleep in, I can kind of just like have one if I want to, right? But there are techniques you can do to practice. But I've never had an out of body
Yeah,
experience.
neither. So it's like I've commonly, like not commonly had lucid dreams, but I've had lucid dreams. I've had Deja Vu, and I obviously dream.
Yeah.
But like out of body experience, and like even meditate as well, and like it's.
I have out of body experiences because like a good way is like walking in the cold, like extreme winter, because everything's white, and then you also start to like not want to feel inside your body, and so you kind of tend to disassociate until you get an out of body experience. So like, I don't know, swim in a pool for a bit and then like walk home in the winter. You might get a cold, but also out of body experience, and also working a shift at McDonald's.
Oh my God.
Well,
Working a shift at McDonald's is a good way to out of body experience.
That doesn't sound very fun.
no.
Well, that's
No.
no the out of body experience.
Yeah, that's how you get to the out of body.
It's
Well-
a necessity.
You know, one thing that may be something to try is sensory deprivation.
Right.
That might, yeah, I've never tried that, and I've often wondered, like, that might do it.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Anyway, maybe we talked about this before too, the alien abductions. You know, most accounts of people being taken away by aliens and probed are, you know, they happen when you're in bed, right? Ghosts too. I had someone who was like, I've definitely experienced a contact with ghosts. I was like, what? And they said, oh yeah, I was sleeping and I had just woken up and there was he was there and then he was gone. And I was like, oh, sleep paralysis. Yeah. And then they weren't happy with that, but I said, I'm sorry, I'm a scientist. Actually, I wasn't at the time, but what's that?
Never trust your bet. They always deserve it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Get a-
told-
Get a bad sleep, see a ghost.
I told my friend that glare from a window was not a UFO, it was glare from a window. He was so upset. for the
Yeah.
rest of the day.
Well, people want to believe in cool stuff,
Yeah.
right? But isn't the way the brain does all of this the really cool part? I think it's the really cool part, you know? Give me the brain, the inner workings of the mind brain over ghosts any day.
I like the cultural explanations, like Aztecs and like the Greeks explaining what dreams meant, or
Mhm.
like even just coming up with incubus and succubus. Because like I also feel like there's a certain amount of like religion played a lot into the creation of like those demons, because like also
Yeah.
there's a level of like sexual repression
Yeah.
too. Like I think that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it always varies a little bit across culture, but like we were saying earlier, dreams were, I don't think there's I don't think you can find any culture, well, except maybe ours, like, except maybe like nowadays in the West, where we don't really assign importance to dreams. Most other cultures, older cultures, they think dreams are pretty important. And I think like, yeah, we've lost that. And that's a shame, because dreams really are something pretty cool that our minds can do. We shouldn't lose the wonder over them just because we can explain them.
Yeah.
So, you know, but
There's more wonder now that you can explain it.
what's that?
I think there's more wonder now that you can explain it and understand it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we ruin the wonder by explaining things, you know? But some people also say that you can try and induce an out-of-body experiences from a lucid dream. I've never tried that. I guess it's possible, but I'm not really interested in doing that. But, you know, out-of-body experiences are interesting because if you believe that you're really leaving the body, well, then that tells you something about your outlook on the mental and the physical, right? It means you're a dualist, right? Yeah. Yeah, if you believe that you're really leaving your body, then you must be a dualist. But you might be a monist if you think it's all just representations in your head. Let's actually, you know what, let's save this slide for next time. The one other thing I want to say about this is that kind of like what Zoe was saying about going for a swim and then walking or working at McDonald's. Some people report having out-of-body experiences during moments of peak performance. Right? So
Yeah, athletes when they're like running.
yeah, certain athletes, musicians, and, you know, anyone who's got expertise and who gets so absorbed in the task that
Yeah, runners call it a runner's high. Musicians
Well,
call it like the groove.
a runner's high is those are that's different though. I'm talking about literally like they seem to watch themselves perform.
Oh, I mean, like, just like the way people describe those things often tend to be the same. Like the way musicians
Well-
describe the groove sounds like an out-of-body experience, and the way runners describe a runner's high sounds like an out-of-body.
Oh,
experience.
no, not to me. I don't, because I'm definitely in my body if I'm going for a jog,
Oh,
or
okay.
if I'm feeling the groove, I'm like, yeah, no, but during peak performance, what people will literally report that it was like they were watching themselves perform. That's the out-of-body experience,
Mhm.
right? And so maybe, because if you're an expert, you have a lot of automaticity. All that stuff, you're playing the piano, you're playing the sport, whatever, it's all automatic and unconscious. And you kind of, it's almost like ego death. The self kind of disappears and you're just being there, playing the piano or winning the game or whatever, right? Yeah.
But there's like almost no effort put into it.
Exactly.
You see, that's how ants ants experience things?
I don't know if ants experience things.
Ooh.
If they do, I think their experiences are quite simple. Right? You know what I mean?
Hive mind?
Yeah, ants are like a hive mind, where each ant is cognitively very simple, but the whole hive behaves in very complex ways, right? Jeremy actually in the chat,
Experience.
yeah. Sorry, Jeremy in the chat says he's had this happen before, this sort of, you know, leaving the body at a peak performance flow state. That's really cool. I've never had that happen, but I think I can imagine. I've gotten close, you know, sometimes I'm playing guitar or a video game and I'm just like really like in the zone, you know?
I think also when you get really good at an instrument,
Mhm.
it like it stops being, if you want to talk about like levels of thought, it stops being at a thought level.
Yeah.
And it lowers down. I think when you focus on lower level of consciousness, maybe you take away from like sensory perception, and then maybe your mind gets like representation.
Yeah, maybe,
You know, I think so.
maybe.
I think you're also doing an experience like with like you are asking people to do things after experiencing downtime.
Yeah.
Like an echo?
Well, yeah, you'd be like a strange loop.
Like I am enjoying playing this. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying hearing this. I'm enjoying doing this.
Exactly.
And what you said, who's the guy who said that our brain can't make perceptions?
What?
No way.
Oh.
Like the
Or can't make perceptions or can't perceive. I can't.
Well, our brain definitely perceives, right?
Yeah, our brain perceives. Maybe it was make like examples.
the no way theory where everything is like outside. And like
The world
you
is its own
perceive
best.
The world perceives or like something like.
Well,
that.
we use the world, it's an active perception.
Yeah.
We use the world as its own best model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had your hand up too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do these things only have to occur in peak performance? Because like.
No.
My sister has a lot, like, she kind of goes on autopilot a lot. like,
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult, but.
Well, I will say we're really out of time, but I'll say that out of body experiences can also happen with like seizures or certain psychoactive substances or near-death experiences. Yeah, so you know, people sometimes they die on the operating table, like they're clinically dead for a few minutes, and sometimes when they wake up, they report that they were out of their body, like looking down. Were they really out of the body? Or was the brain, the dying brain, doing something weird that we don't understand yet? Right? I know.
There's a show on Netflix about near-death experiences called the OA. It's very.
Oh,
It's bad.
yeah, I couldn't. But yes,
But it does involve out of body.
it does. It does.
A lot more, but.
It does. I tried it and I was like, what? Like,
My parents go watch
what's
it, they watch the
happening?
whole First season and they ended, they go like,
And the
when they were
dance?
watching the last episode, I wonder when they were watching the last episode.
Yeah.
like, You're terrible for making us watch this.
Yeah, I couldn't, I think I'd stopped watching it. My partner was watching it and I came in and they were doing that dance. And I was like, what's happening? Like, it's so weird. Anyway, we need to come up with something for next time. I think Blackmore has a few interesting. Yeah, I was going to say altered states.
Yeah.
I think we should do altered states because we've touched on altered states a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily include drugs, but it also does. So
Yeah, I was gonna
yeah.
ask in altered states, could we include like psychosis and PTSD?
I think she might.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very much
so-
drugs.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's very similar, and so I feel like there would be a lot of crossover and easy enough, you know.
Yeah, and you know, obviously the disclaimer is, you know, don't go and do anything after lecture, right? But no, I am genuinely curious how you know, there's a lot of interest right now in psilocybin on the brain and consciousness and what a time to be alive and talking about cognitive science and philosophy. So we should talk about it.
The university just had a lecture where they showed off a movie about like the benefits of psilocybin. So.
Yeah, and it's yeah, I mean, it's entering the zeitgeist in a big way, you know, thanks to like Paul Stamets and people like that,
Yeah.
you know.
Article, not tragic, but like, there's a not great article for like the psychedelic and like therapeutic community. One of the, there's a group of people doing a MDMA research thing. I can't remember what, but there was like a video that surfaced of them like spooning the person and like restraining them because they were having a not a great
Yeah.
MDMA experience, and it was like a fully like Health Canada research grant and everything like that. So
Yeah, yeah, got to be careful with that stuff. I mean, I don't know, just don't is probably the safe bet. So that's my advice. But anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody who joined online. We'll finish off dreams and start talking about altered states next time. And I'll figure out exactly when the last day of class is, and
It's not reading assignments 3.
I'm going to extend it.
It's extended.
I'm going to. I haven't yet.
Track of time, so I'm not too far behind.
Welcome. No, yeah. Oh, okay. Bye, everybody. Yeah.